a little bit of our next information. Thanks.
Yeah, and I see the last person snuck in the word learning, which was what this is all about as well. So Cello, why don't, with that anticipation and excitement and everything, let's go ahead to the next slide. And I really can be quite brief with this because this is an orientation on where we've been so far up till now, and just a quick review. As I think everybody knows, for this refresher, we developed maturity models and assessment methods so we could better understand organizational culture and workforce, and so we could identify what kind of changes in the organization are needed. And we did this in the context of an overall model and system where we had scales where we can rate things on a 1 through 5 scale, and where we integrate organization culture and workforce into creating value through the learning process that we have, and through an upcoming change process that we're going to be engaged in. Next slide. And as you will recall, this is a continuous improvement process where we spent time in the yellow in the first phase of this, where we assessed system maturity, or developed an assessment tool to assess maturity and a way of analyzing. We're going to spend more time on that in terms of analyzing, leading to the ability in an organization to design the future state, make change, plan improvements, and then monitor how we're doing. And on the other graphic on the left just illustrates that we're talking about the interaction between people in an organization with their supervisor, with management, with the organization as a whole, with their team, and with the bureaucracy and the governance that exists in the organization. Next slide. We grounded the work that we did in a workforce maturity model and an organizational maturity model, Daniel Pink's workforce maturity model, and Patrick Lencioni's organizational maturity model, where they had different categories that they clumped different attributes of successful organizations. Next slide. And what we did, and Kesra's on the phone here, or on the call, where she developed this nice graphic to express the fact that we held workshops, and on the workforce workshop, organizational culture workshop, and we identified on this what would preliminary level 5 maturity statements look like for workforce and for organizational culture. And we had some 200 of them for workforce, some 200 for organizational culture. We were able to categorize them. Daniel Pink and Lencioni had their categories. We came up with our categories, and we collapsed these categories. We started with 45, collapsed it down to 20, then finally down to 8 different sections or categories for our assessment model. And then next slide. And within these different categories, we identified tier 1 questions. We decided that it would be good to have maybe 10 of these. We wound up with 22 questions that we fit into these categories. We couldn't help ourselves. And on this 1 through 5 scale, it ranged from a 1 was don't know to strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly disagree was the number 5 type of scale that we had. And for those tier 1 questions in this survey that we had, that we developed, and that the core team worked so darn hard in developing too. The methodology was that if it was agree or strongly agree, one would go on to the next question. If it was don't know, strongly agree, or disagree, then there would be a tier 2 question that you would go to. So if you go to the next slide, we just have a couple quick examples. So one of the categories was organizational strategy and performance. And one of the questions was, I know how my work relates to the organizational goals. So you'd rate it from 1 through 5. And next slide, please. And so if it was don't know, strongly disagree, or disagree, next slide, then we'd get to the best answers that represented those thoughts. So if the question, and one would be, I'm not aware of my organizational goals, I do not understand my organizational goals, my manager has not explained them and how it relates, how my work relates, my direct manager does not share team's objectives with me, or my team does not have regular meetings. So you would indicate that in a tier 2 question. We have one more example of another question in the communication and feedback category. I am comfortable voicing my concerns and opinions to my management. And so if you said, I don't know, strongly disagree, or disagree, then why am I not comfortable voicing my concerns and opinions? Is it because of the potential ramification, from my potential ramification from my management, from the reaction of my peers, colleagues? Nothing ever gets done about the concerns that are raised anyway. Nobody else on my team raises their concerns, or I do not trust that hearing my concerns would be welcomed by management. And then there was a follow-up, another tier 2 question related to it that said, why would I would be uncomfortable voicing my concerns about what? Deficiencies in workflows, tools, methods, equity and inclusion, fairness in hiring and promotion practices, fairness in providing opportunities for growth and learning, somebody else not doing their job well, or inappropriate behaviors. So you get a feel for the kind of level 1 questions and level 2 methodology. So I think that you all, pretty much everybody on the line, went through this. So if you had a burning question, you could ask. If we were dealing with a new audience, this would be a time to get some Q&A, but I think probably we just move on to, Cello describing, an outline of what are our next steps, Cello.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So we're just kind of climbing this ladder, and the green is stuff that we've done at UM, and the blue is things that we're going to be doing in the future. And in the first year of, in the first year of WISE. So one thing that we have basically done is we have developed a framework where we show where these different pieces fit. So we were here in the workforce and the organizational culture areas. And then what we need after that is a maturity model that defines the range of performance and how well something can work. So we can. So that's what we've been working on right now. And these questions that we see here are really an assessment method to see how a specific system actually works. So these are the things that the beginning of this continuous improvement cycle that we've been working on so far. And on the right is just the example. And after we have the assessment method, we're going to look at analyzing. We have to have a tool that once you get that survey back, what does it really mean? So that we can then develop an improvement strategy and say, how do we raise that maturity and then implement improvements? So we're going to be finalizing this assessment method and then providing a tool to kind of report on these results. And hopefully we can complete the whole cycle So the plan for the first year is to finalize this assessment tool. I think we're pretty close. And then define the analysis method and tool that will say, okay, if this is the range of answers, these are the answers that how somebody, to this tool, the survey, what does this mean? And what kind of, how can we use these results to define the improvement strategy and then make the improvement? So that's really what we'd like to do in the next year, with the hope that we would have at least some pilot implementations where utilities would actually develop an improvement strategy and implement it and then put together a case study. So that's really what would be our goal. It's important to remember that all the stuff that we do impacts many other things, because we have change management that is very difficult to do if we don't understand the workforce and the organization and in the interaction. So it really helps. This will really help us there. And also, even processes and even selection or use or adoption of technology are all really rely on the people. And it's been such a common experience. People say, well, there's low adoption of technology. Well, there's a reason. So that's kind of how it all fits together. And what we're going to be doing is revising and updating the maturity model as necessary. I think we're pretty close. The same for the assessment method. And then figure out how we can do case studies for pilot implementations. And we can have discussions whether to do this for a team, for a process, or perhaps for the entire agency. There is at least one agency that would like to sort of do this all around, and we can discuss how the pros and cons of that. Also, we would like to, we will build a library of shared artifacts that people can say, okay, this is how we're doing this is how we're doing that, and then share between different utilities. We didn't do that quite so much in the last year of UAIM. We've done it before very successfully, but we were just embarking on this workforce and organization culture issues, so we haven't yet generated a nice library of shared artifacts. Another thing that's going to be important, which is a WEF priority, is to engage some young professionals in developing a mentoring network, which is we've mostly had sort of senior people in these efforts. And we would like to make the effort go a little deeper within the utilities. So the senior people we have are really busy with different things, and it would be nice if if some young folks would come in and support and do work along the more experienced people, and even there was a really good idea that came from one of the utilities that said, we should have a mentoring network across all these utilities who are participating. So perhaps somebody, in Minneapolis really engages with somebody in Toho, and somebody in Baltimore really engages, so that these mentoring relationships develop and are kind of fluid, and a younger person could learn from one person one thing and from another person other thing, because I think it'll bring also a different kind of energy if we engage folks like that. So WEF has this young professional program, so we're going to kind of work with that. And at the end of the year, we'll try to have lessons learned and figure out how we can communicate this, have case studies published and stuff like that. So we're back to, if there are any questions, I'll ask the questions. I think Lisa's back.
This might be a good time for Amy to pause and get some feedback. It looks like we have time for that too. So I don't know, Lisa, if you're on mute or not. You're on mute, Lisa.
Yeah, I thought I would see if there were some questions, but we'll have, we're doing pretty good on time. So we'll have time for questions after we conclude too. Some folks might have it actually after this next section. So give you a little idea of what kind of scope and time commitment participating in the WISE workforce and culture group would entail. So we're planning these 1 hour status updates every other Monday in this time slot. I think Cello's going to record them. He did the last time, so if folks missed, they can still catch up, which I think is really helpful. We'll have some remote workshops like we did the first round, but we're also thinking that we'll be able to do some in-person stuff this next round with this work. So the 2021 WEFTEC, 2022 Utility Management Conference. So things in 2022 are definitely shaping up to look pretty positive, and even this fall at WEFTEC. There's a workshop, which Scott probably could give a little more detail on if people have questions, but there's one coming up in October at WEFTEC. We're probably going to need some additional volunteers, folks that are both interested and feel they have the time to commit. We'll have a core team again to work on some of the deeper dive on the work that we're coming up with. And I think that will be a rewarding experience, because when you look at the participants we had last time in the core, they're really knowledgeable and what I call leading edge leaders. And so you're amongst a great group of, so that exchange of information that goes into that work as a core team will be of value, in addition to the output of value for all of us. So that's the extent of the scope and time commitment. Why a little bit more in terms of my sales pitch for participating. This is a challenge. Change is hard. This is particularly hard because we're starting to try and change the thinking of our leaders. And if that thinking doesn't change, the organization won't change. So in the old days, we just make a bunch of rules and tell everybody to live by them. But what we're really trying to do today is shape judgment, not only for our leaders, but every member of our organization, because that's what it's going to take for us to be able to adapt to the VUCA world that we're living in, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So take with us an old story that I repeat to myself every once in a while, just to keep my enthusiasm and energy up. It's called The Story of Two Young Fish, because I think it represents our challenge with learning that needs to take place with our leaders. It's a story about two young fish who swam past an older, wiser fish, and the wise fish greeted them with a question, "How's the water today?" And the two young fish responded with an awkward, "Fine, good." And as they swam off, one of the young fish turned to their buddy and said, "Hey, what's water again?" And their buddy went, "Well, I've heard about it. They say it's everywhere, but I've never seen it." And that's what we're dealing with. So we need together, knowing that we need this change and how important it is, we have to find ways to make sure we don't have our leaders going, "I don't know what they're talking about." So with that, we can advance to the next slide.
Lisa?
Oh, I see we have a question.
Yeah, Kesra had her hand up.
Go for it.
I don't know if I missed it in one of the slides, but what's our deadline for this? What is our time frame to get this done, this next step?
Maybe I can answer this.
Sure.
We will, our effort officially starts on September 1. So this is sort of a planning meeting. And one of the things that we're going to try to do is work with, instead of treating this as a project and giving everybody deadlines and stuff. We're going to try to structure it so around people's priorities, so that we can say, okay, how can we structure the deadlines and the deliverables and the activities so they bring the most value to the utilities in terms of how well you can absorb them, how you can how you want to invest your time. So it's a little bit different from a traditional classical project. That's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit reluctant to put forward a Gantt chart and say, everybody, okay, this is what you're going to stick on, because a lot of times, especially people who fresh join the call fresh, say, okay, what do I have to do for this project? And I'm trying to turn that around and say, what can the project do for you? So we have a general sense of the deliverables that we would like to have at the project that I proposed, there. But we'll have to we'll have to gauge this to the overall, team. And, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go as a group. And since we're a group, we're trying to strike a balance between saying, okay, you got to get this done by such and such day, and not having any how should I say, driving pressures at all. So when the project starts on September 1, that's going to be one of the things that we're going to first work out when we have the full set of people on board and say, this is the proposed schedule. And then for somebody, people have different things. Somebody has like, in September and October are my budgeting months. I can't really, and then we'll have to shape it. We know what we want to have at the end. We want to maximize the efficiency, but I'm just a little bit reluctant to throw this out and say, okay, this is what you're going to be doing. Does that make sense, Keisha?
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. But so does WISE have some kind of, hey, you guys have 2 years to get this thing done, or is there something?
We are WISE.
Okay.
We are.
So we figured out. Okay, that makes sense.
So there, and even I'm very grateful for WAF sponsorship, but this is an effort for the participating utilities, and this has to be done it has to be governed and managed based on, for them to get the maximum out of it. So if something takes a little bit longer because we want to get it right, it'll take a little longer. If one utility can run a little faster, that's wonderful. The project team will give them support. If one utility wants to go, a little bit slower, that's okay too. And I just want to, we have Mike Stoll online, and he will remember, he's one of the very early participants from the very beginning. The first time we had a workshop, we started with business processes. We had an all-day workshop at the Utility Management Conference in 2017, and all we talked about was building business process models. And we only had 5 or 6 utilities at the time. Each of the utilities came to me afterwards and says, what exactly are we doing here? What are we going to get? And then we worked, and Mike Stoll will remember, for 6 months, the project team had weekly calls with each of the utilities working on their models. And by the end, by the WEFTEC, like 6 or 7 months later, we had a WEFTEC workshop about the UAM project. And it was mostly presentations by people who were doing the modeling. And the funny thing is that we invited a bunch of utilities who had not participated in UAM, thinking that they would sign up, and none of them did, because they said, well, we don't have people like this, because Mike Stoll and Kevin Simmons were out there using language that these people have never touched. Mike Stoll was doing simulations with workflows and stuff, so they thought, well, what the heck is going on? So we have to adopt it's like we're on a bus, and we can get there when the bus gets there. But whether we run back and forth inside the bus, it's that's what we're not gonna do. So it's just making sure that the collaboration can happen, which doesn't mean that we don't have real objectives, but we just have to be adaptable. Sorry to get on the soapbox, but I think it's kind of like an important thing.
Lisa Zanetta has her hand up as well.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Cello, I appreciate the context of what you said, but we just need to understand the harsh reality for utilities is that we're paying a fee on a yearly basis.
Right.
Okay, so this is what, and I've had multiple conversations with people. This is the reality. We're trying to make a decision. Utilities are based on what is happening on our participation on the Water Research Foundation. We have to pay a fee. We pay a separate utility fee for WEF and then WISE. Okay, that's the reality of it. So the decisions that we have to go, and for all of us who are advocates, have to go back to our leadership. I'm a leader, and say, this is what we're planning to do this year. This is what's going to get done, so that they can help make the decision to bless it to go on another year. So if we have something that's going to cover 2 years, I understand that, but we're going to have to come up with some concrete deliverables that we can do from year to year. And then if there's something that's going to take a little longer, that's fine. But we're going to have to do that, because we're going to have to keep in mind that, like you said, the trigger for budgets, but then we're also going to have the trigger of when we're going to renew. And somebody is going to ask us, what have you all done? And that is,
Oh, yeah.
so there has to be a balance to that. Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And at our first meeting of the group, after September 1, there will be a proposed work plan, just like we had, for the last 2 years of UAIM, proposed work plan with a Gantt chart as activities. And so that will be there. All I was trying to say is there'll have to be a little bit of a dialogue with utilities if this addresses their needs, if some modifications need to be made, if some utilities will go a little faster, some may go a little slower, because to make sure that everything that we have there can actually get done. So I heard you, and I understand, and we will have a work plan, a proposed work plan. Then we can have a meeting like this and discuss if this is feasible and see how people feel about it.
Yeah, good comments. I just throw in that every utility needs to kind of gauge, scale this appropriately for their organization. Last phase, the core team invested a lot of time. Some others who were on the overall team invested a little less time, but we're still part of it. So there is going to be that kind of flexibility. But I think Zanetta knows well that it's a very results-oriented type of group that we have, and we'll definitely need to be creating the deliverables that you're suggesting, Zanetta.
We do have a Mentimeter active again. If you want to, if you'd like to contribute your thoughts on what is your primary interest within the workforce and organizational culture initiative.
Yeah. So Lisa, do you want to take this part away?
Well, this is a question that could be answered in different ways. And I think Zanetta's comments and questions were right on, in terms of we always have to keep sight of what are we taking away from this that we can actually apply and show a benefit to. And so use this Mentimeter as a way to your thoughts. How can we bring you greatest value as we go forward within this context of workforce and the org culture change initiative.
And we've already got a few real good ones.
Yeah, this is, I think, really well timed between Zanetta's comments and this question. It's amazing sometimes how nicely things correlate. But it is really key. I think one of the things while folks are putting their comment in that's really gotten my attention as I thought about, first I was in the UAIM, do I want to continue on the WISE? One of the things that got my attention was the talk that came up about mentorship, and that came up through the group. I do think that there's potentially a lot of good that could come from us thinking about how do we apply mentorship within our efforts on the WISE basis. So I do hear good ideas coming forth, and they're being considered or rolled into our work. So keep the ideas coming. I think after that, we have one other question we were hoping to get some input on before we can wrap up and give you back maybe a few minutes of time today. It's like we've had 7 respondents. How many do we have in our meeting today? I haven't seen the numbers pop up. Let's see.
12.
Yeah.
Okay, so people can still, we'll move to the next slide, but if you're still kind of formulating your response to that, you go right ahead and finish that out. That won't be turned off.
Actually, once I get away, if you have additional, you can put it in the chat line. Because
okay.
I can't have two pages up at the same time in Mentimeter.
So when you advance to the next slide, that actually moves the question. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm still learning about this Mentimeter myself.
It's okay. So
I would like to make sure we have, since we're not pressed too badly for time, let's make sure people have had a chance to, maybe you could raise your hand using the little hand raising thing if you're done with this question, and then we'll know whether we can advance or not. And we'll just look for a raised hand. Everybody know how to do that? Raise your hand on the screen.
Okay, Dan's done. And somebody else.
Yeah,
and
people
Pat.
are getting it in now.
Okay. So Mike Sweeney's on the phone, I think. Mike, you're on the phone?
So it looks
I'm online. I just raised my hand. I'm done.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Well, yeah, it looks like we've got responses from everybody, but Scott and
yeah,
so,
and Mike Barnett, and so it looks like we're ready.
Yep,
okay.
Now you can lower your hands, and we'll go to the next question. So this is to help us understand there's other areas of work in the WISE, so other groups other than ours. So we're interested in knowing if you're thinking there's some folks in your organization that would be good to add to one of those other areas, or you might want to talk to about the opportunity to participate. It's, as I understand, one fee for WISE. So you might as well have multiple participants if you see a good connecting interest. So we'd love to hear where you might have some folks that aren't yet involved, but could be interested in one of the other areas.
And just, Lisa, maybe Cello wants to just rattle off what those other areas are. Oh, there they are. There they are. They're in the survey. There you go.
So just a question, Cello, you're only allowing one option. What if there's more than one?
More than one. You could say, okay, I know somebody in asset management, and I know somebody who would be interested in energy management. Just click away. We're just trying to get a sense. And also,
I guess I'm saying is it only lets you click on one. It won't give you
really
more than one.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's I don't know if this format allows. I don't know if this format allows me.
Suggest the chat. Can we, so pick your top one from there, and then any others you should put in the chat.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
and change management is so much related to this topic that it makes sense that people are clicking on that. And our first call is going to be on Wednesday. And again, it's just before the effort even started. It's just it's just kind of to get us together and talk about how we're going to approach things. And it was very useful. Zanetta's comment on its own was very useful. And, you know, I made some notes here about what my homework is.
And Lisa, I think that this is Scott, I think that the underlying interest here is, what about expanding participation, you know, from each of your utilities? And what is the role that you can play in encouraging others to participate in other groups, I think is what we're trying to get at. And maybe even some accountability and follow through on your part to, you know, to do that, as well as encouraging people to participate in this particular team.
Well, I would add to that, let us know how we can support you in reaching out to those folks. Is there some additional information? Is there, you know, we could certainly, if you provide their emails, we could provide them a direct connecting communication so that they start to get looped into the effort. So let us know. In fact, you could raise your hand and share that now, or put something in the chat.
Dan Ott has his hand up.
Go ahead, Dan, and then Kesara after that.
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to take my hand down, but I will say our organization is definitely interested in and planning to participate in multiple areas. I'm pretty engaged in the CIP planning and delivery section. In fact, we've got a call on Monday, and we've got Scott Parker from our team who's going to shift his focus to technology and data analytics for this year. And then we also have Parajat, who will be involved with this group, and I think also is engaged with the change management effort. So very excited.
I have a quick question. Do you have something that we can provide the people in our organization as sort of a really simple summary background of what we've accomplished? Maybe even the slide deck you just did, I don't know. Because I do have a couple of people. We've got someone in our transformation team and someone actually in IT. We hired a change management or change leader manager because we've got like 3 huge IT projects for new technologies we're bringing in. So she's about change management. I think she'd be great on this team. So, but I'd like to give her something in advance to say, here's what WISE is doing. This is what we're doing. If they want to join, and then if we can set up a meeting with you guys to explain further, but at least that initial sort of intro, so they can go to their managers or directors and, you know.
Yes. Sorry. So yes, we have like a one-page infographic. We have some videos that talk about, for example, there's a video about WISE that was when we were reporting to the Utility Management Committee for AWWA and WEF, and I will provide some materials to anybody who would like this. I will certainly provide materials that they could use for that.
Yeah, if you could send it to me, and then when I do forward it to them, I'll copy you and Scott on it. That way, if they have any questions, they can kind of
Sure.
direct you guys as well.
I did start the recording on this meeting a little late because I haven't gotten into the swing of it, but I think we captured most of it. So each by the thing is not that we lack things. We have more than 5,000 files from UAM. We have 72 videos available. We have, a ton of stuff. It's just how to find something that, for me, has always been a struggle. They always ask me for the quote elevator speech, unquote. And since then I started to really hate elevators, but
one major infographic would be great, just to get an introduction out. That's
yeah, I have a couple of things that I can certainly send your way. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, that's your next area to focus on. Become more of a marketing person. Just kidding.
That's right.
We need a brochure.
Yes, we have a brochure, and we do have a infographic that's separate from the brochure. Okay. I apologize for this if you're hearing the sound.
If you would like to learn more,
it's
contacts are provided on the slide.
My sound is not coming across, is it?
Yeah, your voice is coming across.
Okay. So this is this was all we had on the slide deck. Lisa, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, my final thoughts are welcome back, and I hope that you're finding enough value that you'll hang with us in the whys and help us make it better. That should always be our inspiration and aspiration.
Yes, and what I will do is I will put following up on Zanetta's comment, I will put together a proposed work plan, and I will also send it before the September meeting. About a week from now, so that there's time for you to comment and suggest, so that once we get into the meeting, into that first meeting in September, we've had a chance at least to have one round of comments and and suggestions on the work plan.
So just to clarify, Cello, will all of these different teams or groups start in September?
That is correct. Yes. So that is something that I'm going to take Zanetta's comment and apply it not just to this this initiative, but also to the other ones, because two reasons. First of all, it totally makes sense. I get it. And second, I'm really aware that Zanetta is bringing up an issue that will resonate with others,
Yeah, a question from Sherry.
Yes, I just wanted, good morning, everyone, clarification on our interest in still being part of the process along with WISE. Do we have to do anything formal, or we just continue to participate in the biweeklies and contribute in that way?
Okay, if as we start the efforts, the core team will sort of naturally emerge, and we will definitely have because different utilities have different sort of desires. Some of the people join, let's say, maybe are really interested in the CIP delivery, but they're curious to hear about change management or about workforce. So they may have a very active and engaged role on one, but on the other topic, maybe they just want to kind of listen in and learn. And so, for example, so we will form the teams with that kind of. That's why the survey and the way we're going to say, okay, these are the, tell us which initiatives you want to really roll up your sleeves and do the work, or if you'd like to mostly be sort of a observer, more of an observer role. So, and both are acceptable. So we fully accept it. We fully expect that there'll be a core team on each of the initiatives.
fellow, if that third slide you had showed who on that first column was already registered or indicated they're actively want to be on this team effort.
That is
workforce and culture. And then there was some names on the right. If you know you want to commit to be on the team, you could put your name in the chat and Chella will make sure you get added to the first column as an active participant.
That's actually, Lisa's completely right. This is something that I was actually supposed to do and mention, and I failed to do so. So this is the list. We had a survey, and this was response from the survey. So a number of people said, yeah, I want to be actively engaged. But then somebody said, well, I'd like to be informed. On the right side, there are people who participated in the organization culture and workforce last year. So we suspect that some of them would want to, also participate this year. It just happens that they didn't answer the survey. So if for folks on the phone, if you can just say, I want to be on the core team, or I want to be actively engaged, or I want to just be informed, that'll be very helpful for us to know how to reach out to you and when to reach out to you. And for some,
you'll continue to send the meeting invites, even if you're not ready to move from the right column to the left column, you'll still get invites. You could, if you're not ready, you could think about it and join us in the future and, choose to become an active team member at a later time too.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
All right. I'm only going to be able to give you back a couple minutes. Is there any remaining questions or comments that we need to hear before we would sign off? I think I always like to close with, and you can put it in the chat, if there are suggestions you have for how we can improve this meeting, either the way we're setting our agendas or proceeding, the way we're responding to input or creating opportunities for participation. If you got ideas for us to improve, we want to hear them. So with that, I think we can call it a wrap. Thanks everybody for joining us